Sunday, June 21st, 1987. A day of new beginnings. A day to organize a new church at the corner of Palo Cristi Road and Lincoln Drive in Paradise Valley, Arizona. A day that seemed for a while would never come. At about 9:30 a.m., members of Camelback Presbyterian Church began to gather with their former pastor, the Reverend Q. Gerald Roseberry, at the north end of the patio of the building that they had occupied since its construction in 1965. Members of Sunrise Presbyterian Church gathered with their former pastor, the Reverend Gene Lefebvre, at the south end of the patio. Though it is already warm and will reach 105 degrees today, a choir made up of members of the new church is wearing blue robes. The congregation stand behind banners representing their journey to this day. What did bring them to this day? In 1983, Gene and Jerry had been talking at a Presbytery meeting. Sunrise Presbyterian had never owned a building since it had broken off from Orangewood Presbyterian Church in the mid-1970s. They had worshipped at the Christown YMCA and at Western International University, and now needed a new place. Jerry asked if they might be interested in sharing space with Camelback, and Gene said it might be a good idea. Jerry shared with Camelback members that he appreciated the great sense of community he saw in Sunrise, and hoped some of it might wear off on Camelback. The two churches could share office staff, fellowship opportunities, and educational programs, while each keeping its own identity, Sunday worship service, and pastoral leadership. However, maybe in a few years, closer cooperation or even a merger could be considered. In June 1983, Sunrise joined Camelback in calling 3535 East Lincoln Drive home. And over the next few years, the two churches did begin to do things together. A big issue at the time was Central American Civil War and violence, and the refugees fleeing for their lives coming north to the United States. Camelback and Sunrise became involved with other churches advocating for the refugees and against the government position they were illegal in the country for economic reasons. On October 1st, 1984, an ecumenical service in solidarity with refugees was sponsored by the Valley Religious Task Force on Central America and was held at the Camelback Sunrise facility. A government informer with a body bug was also present, taping the service, and later went through the parking lot taking down license numbers. A lawsuit filed by the congregations and denominations followed, going all the way to the Supreme Court. It was a partial victory for the plaintiffs, seeking protection from such government intrusion in their worship lives. Just after Christmas, 1985, after months of planning, members of the two churches departed on a major mission project to build a medical clinic in a very poor neighborhood in a town in southern Mexico. Working side by side accelerated the sense of community between members of the two congregations. Folks began to talk more about the possibility of merger. But the next steps were harder. Though differing worship styles were generally cited, the biggest issues were the sessions holding on to their historical vision for the churches, and there was the small fact that each church had its own long-standing pastoral leadership. After Gene Lefebvre resigned in 1986 and Jerry Roseberry resigned in early 1987, the way now became clearer. A church formation committee, moderated by Presbytery Executive the Reverend Robert Chapman, and consisting of Rita Burkhardt, Dick Carr, Sarah Lee Deacon, Kay Hampson, David Lindner, and Gloria Olson, developed a plan to dissolve Camelback and Sunrise Presbyterian churches and to form a new church. On May 31st, 1987, the plan was formally presented to the prospective congregations. Sunrise voted 42-7 to accept it. Camelback voted 49-17 in favor of the plan, but only after an impassioned plea by Charles Ackerman that he wasn't sure he could sing "We Are One in the Spirit" again if the plan failed. On Sunday, June 21st, 1987, at 10 a.m., the Presbytery of Grand Canyon held a service of organization presided by Audrey Elliott, moderator of Presbytery. The members of the two congregations about to become one walked with their former pastors and banners from either end of the patio and into this room to become a single congregation. Bob Chapman preached the sermon. 378 charter members were received, and a session and board of deacons were elected. Dr. P. David Sholin, interim pastor of the new congregation, pronounced the benediction. The first few months of the new church existence were an exciting time. Even the election of a church nominating committee created controversy. Important early decisions were on a name: Palo Cristi Presbyterian Church. The adoption of a mission statement. The election of a pastor nominating committee. The election of a permanent session and board of deacons. And the selection of the Reverend Harvey Moore as interim pastor in 1988. Harvey was a stabilizing force as the congregation worked to define its identity and a blended style of worship. With joy and some relief, the congregation proudly celebrated its first anniversary in June 1988. Today, we celebrate with joy that God has led us for 25 years. We are using elements from the 1987 service of organization and the 1988 first anniversary service today to help us look back in gratitude and celebration. And as they did in those services, to look forward to where God is calling this church.